are the latest images coming in of the explosions and blasts that are being reported. This clearly looks like an airstrike. We're going to be getting you details of exactly where this has happened, but this shows you the scale of devastation, the scale that this war has reached. Multiple such explosions being reported in different parts of Ukraine. On your screens right now is one such video, a verified video that we're putting out here on India Today of a blast that's rocked Ukraine. It's clearly an air missile. This is in Kyiv. So again, let me reiterate that the siege has begun. Russia is focusing completely on the capital city now. Multiple explosions, missiles being reported. And even as we're beaming to you, these images from Kyiv are of a missile hitting what looks like a massive building there and then going down all up in flames. You can only imagine the extent of damage, devastation this is causing. Mind you, this is in the capital of Ukraine that this is playing out right now. It's early in the morning, about 4:45, 5 in the morning, that these kind of scenes are playing out. Explosions, blasts, rocking Kyiv through the night. And Gaurav, this is the situation. We're putting out now images verified by us here on India Today of a blast in Kyiv. And it's clear right now that Russia is firing several air missiles at the capital city. They're hoping to down Kyiv by today.
That appears to be the aim, the systematic targeting of Kyiv, the systematic targeting of air defense assets, the systematic targeting of airfields, sending in heli-borne forces. There are two motives here. One, you deny that airfield to Ukrainian Air Force. Two, you ensure that other countries cannot use that airfield to get resources for Kyiv. So that appears to be the motive at this point of time. The systematic targeting in terms of sending in missiles, rockets and air assaults. There are reports of Su-30 fighter jets flying over Kyiv and flying over the eastern part of the country. So this is a multi-pronged offensive that Russia has employed. It's almost like a blitzkrieg to take down, to overwhelm Kyiv without, as Russian media puts it, without targeting civilian areas. That is what they are claiming, that their aim is only to go after military targets for a regime change in Kyiv to ensure Ukraine does not have what Russia calls is a neo-Nazi regime that only panders to the Western countries.
You know, this is scary. I just want to play out that image for you again, full screen, of what's happening right now in Kyiv. There are multiple explosions, blasts being reported. You see one of those there hitting Kyiv. A lot of activity around. You know, there's a lot of lights around. You can see that the buildings, there are people inside. And that just gives you a sense of what kind of casualties we're talking about in this war. You see that particular missile hitting Kyiv, balls of fire all around. And where exactly it's hit, which part of Kyiv is this? We will be getting in our reporter Maria Pysarenko on this as well. But it's essentially a multi-pronged attack that's happening right now on Kyiv. Russia has a clear strategy at hand. According to Ukraine, they're using cruise and ballistic missiles to target the capital. And right now, according to Maria, there's also been a report of the Ukrainian air defense shooting down 2 Russian aircraft above the left bank of Kyiv. Ukrainian forces are trying, Gaurav, they are trying to put up a fight. But the question is, how long can they really last unless they get some sort of military support? Because if you really look at the Russian army or the Russian troops versus Ukraine, they don't stand a chance.
Well, the military balance is tipped very heavily against Ukraine. The military balance is in Russia's favor in terms of the overwhelming superiority in numbers of aircraft, tanks, armored personal carriers, ships. Ukraine doesn't have a submarine. Russia has multiple. You're absolutely right. The military balance is tipped in favor of Russia. But what does it come down to on ground? What is it that Russia hopes to achieve on ground? Do they hope to hold ground, or do they hope only to achieve a regime change and then get back into their territory and have a Russia-friendly regime in power here? When you speak to people, and there are two sets of opinion that very clearly come. The nationalists here say they will fight Russia tooth and nail with everything that they have, including bare hands, even if they do not have weapons. The Ukrainian army, the defense minister and the foreign minister are very categoric that the Ukraine of 2022 2022 is not the Ukraine of 2014. After Crimea, they've learnt their lessons. They've practiced hard. They've trained hard. They've trained with NATO forces. They know the art of war. They have military hardware, $2.5 billion worth of American military hardware between 2014 and 2022, $500 million worth of Javelin missiles and ammunition and other weapons that came in just weeks before this conflict started. So how au fait or how well trained are they in the use of this hardware, and especially the new hardware that has come in, it may be an issue, but they are fighting back and appear to be fighting back hard.
Gaurav, we're putting out now more images from Kyiv. This is hugely concerning. Look at the sky filled with missiles at this point. And this is what Ukraine spoke about cruise and ballistic missile attacks by Russia. Imagine the casualties, the people living there in Kyiv, in the capital city, what they'll be going through right now. If they're in their homes, this is hugely concerning. You see that shower of missiles really hitting parts of Kyiv. This is Russia's strategy, that early Friday morning, they will complete their siege on the capital of Kyiv and thereby complete their takeover of Ukraine. What is playing out in Kyiv is extremely concerning, and we're getting you these kind of verified images here on India Today to tell you what the situation is currently in Kyiv. Multiple such videos that we're going to be putting out one after another. You see the sky completely lit up in the dead of the night, and this morning at about 5 a.m. right now in Kyiv, this is what's playing out. The Russian troops upping the ante. They're firing one missile after another. These are cruise missiles, ballistic missiles that are being fired right into the heart of Kyiv. Let's only hope that residents there, that locals have been evacuated, moved to bunkers. Because if they're in their homes, as they were advised earlier, to stay inside, we really don't know how they could stand a chance against this kind of shower of missiles that's hitting them. Extremely concerning right now, Gaurav, what's playing out. Ukraine, yes, as you pointed out, is trying to put up a fight. But what we're seeing right now in Kyiv, of the shower of missiles that's hitting the heart of Kyiv, that's hitting parts of Kyiv, it doesn't look good.
It clearly doesn't look good, Akshata. The night sky has been lit up with the missile and with the devastation caused by these huge missiles that are being fired, and a building being targeted. And Kyiv has a large number of high-rise buildings with hundreds living in those buildings. It remains to be seen whether it's a residential complex or an official complex that has been targeted at this point of time. But given the fact that a series of missile strikes were anticipated, there was an apprehension that early this morning there would be virtually a blitzkrieg from the Russians in terms of overwhelming military locations with missile strikes. That was the apprehension. People were asked to move to safer areas, and it remains to be seen whether they spent the night at the bunker or trying to get out of Kyiv. Of course, several checkpoints have now been set up almost across the country to ensure that there is some verification of people coming in. Of course, huge traffic jam of people wanting to leave towns and cities and move to villages and safer areas. But look at these images. These images are actually horrifying in terms of when you look at that night sky being completely lit up with those missiles flying in and the destruction caused. Akshita.
Imagine Gaurav living there, and you look up to the skies from your home, from your window, and you see these kind of missiles just showering down upon you. How scary is that thought? Your heart really goes out to all of the residents, to all the Ukrainians out there, and the difficult time they must be having to keep their families safe, to ensure that they're safe under their own roofs, in their homes. Multiple explosions being reported right now across Kyiv. Ukrainian troops trying to put up a fight. We're hearing that Ukrainian air defense has also shot down 2 Russian aircraft that was trying to enter into the Kyiv airspace. But you can clearly see that Russia is now firing air missiles, and the entire night sky there lit up with a series of bombs, with a series of missiles. The kind of damage that we're going to be seeing on the streets of Kyiv is going to be unprecedented. And trust us here on India Today to get you only the latest verified images, the latest verified information of what's really playing out on the ground. We'll be joined also very soon by Maria Pysarenko, who's reporting from Kyiv, from the heart of the capital city, of what's really playing out. You can, of course, understand that right now we're very concerned also about our reporters, our journalists who are out there on the ground with this kind of a situation that's playing out. So we will try to get you as much information from the ground responsibly at that and tell you about what's playing out in Kyiv right now. Those images clearly doesn't look good for Ukraine right now. And it was only a matter of time because with no military support coming in, Gaurav, for Ukraine, there is a concern about how Ukraine can put up a fight. Ukrainians, that's why, all through the day on India Today have been saying, give us military support, help us, send us military arms, send us aid. That's not happened. It's only been sanctions endlessly on Russia. We've lost Gaurav. We'll go across to him in just a bit. Remember, Gaurav is reporting from Mariupol, eastern Ukraine, where there have been multiple incidents and reports of bombing and explosion that's been reported.